He walked into the dimly lit cafe, sweeping the floor with the quiet diligence of someone invisible. No one looked twice at him.
You know, it's
Not
funny
the
how life can
regulars sipping
surprise
their
you.
morning coffee,
Indeed
not the
it
hostess
is.
scanning the
To
room
new
for
beginnings.
newcomers. To them, he was just another janitor. But inside, his chest tightened with a strange mix of amusement and frustration. He was Marcus Williams, one of the wealthiest men in the country, a self-made billionaire. Yet here he was, unnoticed, underestimated, and dismissed. A group of young patrons laughed near the counter, glancing at him with barely concealed disdain. "He probably lives in the broom closet," one sneered. Marcus's jaw tightened. He smiled faintly, letting the words wash over him, knowing they had no idea who he really was. And then she walked in. The waitress, her eyes bright, her movements confident, greeted him not with judgment but curiosity. There was something in her gaze that saw past the uniform, past the dust on his shoes. Something that recognized the person he was beneath the disguise. Little did he know this brief encounter, this moment of quiet injustice and subtle connection, would spark a chain of events neither of them could have imagined, one that would challenge assumptions, reveal true character, and change both their lives forever. Marcus Williams was not just any billionaire. From the outside, he had it all: the towering skyscraper offices, the gleaming black SUVs, and the kind of fortune that could make headlines with a single signature. But behind the suits and the boardroom smiles, he carried a constant, gnawing weight, the knowledge that his race often led people to underestimate him, that privilege and success didn't erase the casual prejudices that followed him everywhere. Every morning, Marcus would drive past cafes, boutiques, and restaurants, noting the subtle dismissals, the sideways glances. People assumed the black man in a tailored suit must be one of the help if he didn't walk with the usual swagger of white privilege. He had grown used to it, yet it stung every time. His wealth opened doors, yes, but respect? True recognition? That was earned in a different currency, a currency most refused to acknowledge when they saw his skin before his mind. In contrast, there was Elena Rivera, the waitress who had noticed him that morning. In her mid-20s, with dark curls tied back and a smile that could light up even the dingiest diner corner, she worked long hours, balancing bills, family obligations, and dreams that stretched far beyond the cafe walls. Life had not been kind, and society had a way of overlooking people like her, young women of color, ambitious but constrained by circumstance. She knew the world was quick to judge by appearances, but she had a keen eye for sincerity. When she looked at Marcus, in a janitor uniform and all, she didn't see the facade. She saw a man who carried himself with a quiet dignity, who treated even the most minor tasks with care, who listened, observed, and respected others in a way that was rare in her world. Meanwhile, the cafe itself was a microcosm of society's biases. Regulars included a mix of the entitled and the oblivious. There was Karen, a woman who sipped her lattes with judgmental precision, whispering critiques about service quality and standards whenever something didn't align with her narrow view. There was Tommy, the young barista who occasionally cracked jokes at Marcus's expense, oblivious to the quiet intelligence behind those eyes. And yet, in this small ecosystem, subtle alliances were forming. Some co-workers like Luis, a line cook, with a penchant for dry humor, had a sense of fairness. He noticed the way Marcus never spoke down to others, never demanded shortcuts, and quietly inspired respect without ostentation. Marcus's life outside the cafe contrasted sharply with it. Boardrooms, gala dinners, and international travel were a daily routine. He had allies in business, yes, but the loneliness that came with success, especially as a black man at the top, was often overwhelming. People celebrated his achievements, but rarely sought to understand the microaggressions and everyday prejudice he endured. And while the world saw Marcus Williams, the billionaire, it seldom saw Marcus Williams, the human, The man who wanted to be seen for who he truly was, not the assumptions tied to his wealth or his skin color. Elena's daily struggles mirrored his, in unexpected ways. She juggled second jobs, family responsibilities, and the persistent reminder that society often discounted people like her. Yet she remained empathetic, sharp, and daring in thought. She had a moral compass that rarely wavered, noticing injustice even when it was hidden behind polite smiles or conversation. In Marcus, she recognized someone trapped between perception and reality, someone forced to navigate both overt and subtle discrimination while maintaining composure. Over time, small interactions began to build. Marcus, in his janitor disguise, offered small acts of kindness, helping a flustered coworker with a heavy tray, returning a dropped order to an embarrassed customer. Elena noticed these moments, observing not just the acts themselves, but the intent behind them, a trait that set Marcus apart. She began to feel a curious connection, a magnetic pull to someone who, on the surface, seemed ordinary but whose character radiated integrity and honesty. Meanwhile, Marcus found Elena's authenticity refreshing. In a world where people treated him differently based on rumors, accolades, or assumptions, she spoke to him as a person, not as a status or a stereotype. Her laughter was genuine, her frustrations relatable, and her dreams inspiring. He began to see a life beyond boardrooms and press releases. In this life, he could be Marcus, without masks, without expectations. But the environment was not without tension. Subtle racial microaggressions continued to surface. A customer demanded someone more presentable when Marcus approached. Another made offhand comments about who cleans up after the rich people. Marcus felt the sting keenly, but he also began to take notes, understand patterns, and plan. Not out of anger alone, but to reveal the truth of his character and the hypocrisy of those around him. And then came the blind date arrangement. Marcus's friend, a fellow entrepreneur who knew both the pressures of wealth and the sting of prejudice, suggested a social experiment. Marcus would attend a blind date disguised as a janitor, allowing him to experience interactions stripped of his fame, wealth, and title. It was risky, unconventional, and potentially humiliating, but Marcus saw the value in it. He would not only witness unfiltered human behavior, but also see who truly noticed the person beneath the exterior. Elena, unaware of the setup, prepared for another busy shift. Her mind wandered between bills, college applications for her younger siblings, and a deep desire to form meaningful connections with the people around her. She never expected the janitor who greeted her with quiet respect to be the catalyst for a story that would challenge every assumption she and the world held. In the days leading up to the encounter, both Marcus and Elena navigated their routines with unspoken anticipation. For Marcus, it was a calculated risk, a delicate dance between humility and revelation. For Elena, it was another ordinary day in a world that often overlooked her brilliance. Yet fate, timing, and circumstance were quietly aligning, preparing a stage for confrontation, revelation, and ultimately the beginning of a connection that neither would forget. The cafe, the janitor uniform, the subtle judgments, and quiet kindness. All pieces of a puzzle that would soon collide in ways that exposed prejudice, celebrated integrity, and revealed love in its most unguarded form. And as Marcus finished his morning rounds, brushing crumbs from a table while keeping an eye on Elena's laughter-filled interactions with customers, he felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps someone would see him for who he truly was before the world did. Marcus had never felt so exposed and, at the same time, so alive. Each day in his janitor uniform, it tested him in ways no boardroom ever had. He navigated sideways glances, whispered judgments, and occasional dismissals, all while holding on to a singular purpose, to see the truth of people's character, and perhaps in the process, reveal his own. After a particularly rough morning, where a customer sneered at him, assuming incompetence, and a coworker muttered that some people just don't belong, Marcus found himself in the cafe's tiny storage room. He was alone with a mop and a bucket. Still in his mind, he was strategizing about connection, perception, and the fragile line between anonymity and recognition, not about work or money. And then Elena appeared, carrying a tray of orders. She leaned against the doorway, catching him mid-sigh. "Rough morning?" she asked, genuinely curious. Her tone wasn't condescending. It wasn't dismissive. It was human. That simple acknowledgement felt revolutionary. Marcus paused, studying her expression, and realized he wanted more than just observation. He wanted engagement, honesty, trust. Their conversations started small. Marcus would ask her about her day, comment on her technique in balancing trays, or quietly admire the way she handled demanding customers with patience and understanding. Elena, in turn, shared bits of her life, including her siblings, the pressures of school, and her dream of opening her own cafe someday. In each exchange, trust built quietly, like embers glowing beneath the surface. But Marcus wasn't content with small gestures. He wanted to reveal truths, challenge biases, and create an environment where people's authentic selves could shine through. He began speaking with Luis, the line cook who had a sharp eye for fairness. "I need your help," Marcus said one evening, leaning on the prep counter. Luis raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "To plan something subtle. Something that exposes prejudice and celebrates integrity at the same time," Marcus replied, his voice steady. Luis, intrigued, leaned closer. "You're talking about a social experiment, right?" Marcus nodded. "Exactly. But it has to be natural. No one can suspect anything. People behave differently when they know they're being watched. We need authenticity." They spent late nights sketching out possibilities, scenarios in which customers' proper attitudes toward people like Marcus would surface. They sought small yet telling moments, someone dismissing service because of a uniform, or someone showing genuine respect despite appearances. Meanwhile, Marcus's feelings for Elena grew. He noticed how she laughed at jokes he never made, how she subtly corrected unfair customer behavior without losing her patience, and how she treated everyone, from bussers to high-maintenance patrons, with dignity. He began to consider her, not just as a witness to his social experiment, but as someone he wanted to trust with his true self. But fear lingered. Marcus knew the stakes. If his identity were revealed too soon, the experiment would fail. Prejudice would be hidden behind forced politeness. And yet, the longer he remained disguised, the harder it became to conceal his admiration for Elena. His heart raced every time she smiled in his direction or offered him a kind word. He began rehearsing conversations in his mind, imagining the moment he would reveal the truth. Would she feel betrayed? Surprised? Angry? Or would she understand the purpose behind the deception? Elena, for her part, sensed something extraordinary about the janitor she had grown fond of. She didn't know why, but there was a certain quiet confidence in him, a patience that set him apart from others who moved through life with entitlement or arrogance. She began sharing more personal thoughts, her fears, hopes, and even minor frustrations about how people judged her on a daily basis. Each revelation deepened the connection, though she had no idea the man before her had the means and influence to change her life. Late nights became planning sessions. Marcus and Luis experimented with scenarios. A group of difficult patrons would test Elena's professionalism and observe how Marcus handled being underestimated. A staged spill, an accidental miscommunication, or a small act of dismissive prejudice would become the catalyst for revealing true character in a natural setting. Every plan carried suspense. Would the patrons respond as expected? Would Elena rise to the occasion, demonstrating integrity and fairness? Would Marcus maintain his disguise convincingly while protecting her from unnecessary embarrassment? The stakes were high. One misstep, one premature reveal, and the delicate balance would collapse. As the days passed, Marcus also had to manage his internal struggle. His dual life, janitor by day, billionaire by heart, was taxing. He craved acknowledgement but feared undermining the experiment. He longed to show Elena the real him, but had to remain patient. He knew that revealing himself too early would dilute the lesson he wanted to convey. That character, not status, defines a person. One evening after closing, Marcus lingered behind the counter, quietly arranging cleaning supplies. Elena approached, carrying a mop. "You know," she said with a sly smile, "you take this job way too seriously for someone who isn't even on the payroll." Marcus chuckled, the sound low and genuine. "Maybe I just like doing things the right way," he replied. His words weren't a boast. They were a reflection of a principle that guided him in every aspect of life. That night, as the cafe emptied, and the streetlights cast long shadows through the windows, Marcus felt a surge of determination. The plan was almost ready. The blind date would be orchestrated in a way that tested honesty, empathy, and courage. Every character, the dismissive customers, the cautious co-workers, and most importantly, Elena, would reveal themselves under subtle pressure. The tension mounted. Marcus rehearsed dialogues in his head, imagining every possible reaction. Elena's kindness, patience, and insight would be put to the test. So would his resolve to remain unnoticed until the right moment. Would she recognize him beyond the uniform? Would she see the man whose wealth was irrelevant compared to his character? Luis, ever the pragmatic ally, reminded him, "The moment has to feel organic. Any hint of manipulation and it's over. People can smell deception a mile away." Marcus nodded. He knew the fine line he had to walk between social experiment, romantic interest, and exposing subtle biases in a way that enlightened without humiliating. Days turned into a careful countdown. Marcus arranged subtle signals with Luis, gestures that would cue when a test was about to begin, when a customer's behavior needed observation, and when Elena's reactions should be noted. Every element was choreographed to heighten suspense, reveal integrity, and inch closer to the moment of truth. Finally, the night of the blind date arrived. Marcus, in full janitor uniform, approached the cafe, heart pounding. The plan was simple yet high stakes. Act natural, engage Elena, observe the patrons, and maintain disguise until the climax. But deep down, he realized something unexpected. He wasn't just testing her or the world. He was being tested too. Would she see him for who he truly was? Would he trust her with the truth? And in the quiet hum of fluorescent lights, the smell of coffee, and the rhythmic clatter of dishes, the stage was set. Suspense crackled in the air like static electricity. The pieces were in motion. The truth, as Marcus and Elena would soon discover, had a way of revealing itself, sometimes in the most unexpected, dramatic, and transformative ways. The night of the blind date had finally arrived. Marcus, still clad in his janitor uniform, arrived early at the small, ambient cafe where the evening's subtle experiment would unfold. The soft hum of light fixtures, the clinking of glasses, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee created a warm, deceptively calm atmosphere. But beneath the surface, tension crackled like static. Every moment was pregnant with anticipation, every glance a test of character. Elena arrived, unaware of the plan, her eyes scanning the room for customers and co-workers alike. She spotted Marcus immediately. His uniform was perfectly ordinary, and his movements were unobtrusive. Yet something in his posture, his quiet confidence, the careful way he handled a mop, the subtle precision in organizing supplies, made her pause. She had noticed these traits in him before, but tonight they seemed amplified. "Evening," Marcus greeted, keeping his tone casual but steady. "Busy night?" Elena smiled, carrying a tray with practiced ease. "Always, but it's manageable." Her voice was light, yet a flicker of curiosity shone in her eyes. She had begun to sense that this man, so unassuming, so ordinary to others, was anything but ordinary. The first test arrived almost immediately. A group of affluent customers entered, laughing loudly and exuding a sense of entitlement. One of them, a man in a sharp suit, glanced at Marcus with barely concealed disdain. "Is this the help?" he asked, a smirk playing at his lips. Marcus met his gaze evenly, but did not respond. Elena, however, stepped forward. "Sir, can I help you find a table?" she asked politely. The man laughed softly, a sound laced with condescension. "No need. Just making conversation." Marcus watched silently, his heart a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Elena handled the interaction flawlessly, calm, professional, and assertive without being confrontational. This was precisely what he had hoped to observe, true character shining under subtle pressure. The evening progressed, each encounter more revealing than the last. Patrons made offhand remarks, testing assumptions, while Elena navigated every challenge with grace. Marcus's respect and admiration for her deepened with each passing moment. But the actual test, the blind date itself, was about to begin. Friend of Marcus's, discreetly planted, signaled that the time had come. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the weight of anticipation settle in his chest. He approached Elena with a careful smile. "Can we talk somewhere quieter?" he asked. Elena, sensing sincerity, nodded. They moved to a corner booth away from prying eyes. Marcus's heart pounded, not from fear of rejection, but from the gravity of what he was about to reveal. "Elena," he began, voice low, "there's something I need to tell you. I'm not exactly who you think I am." Her eyes widened, a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "What do you mean?" Marcus paused, letting the moment build tension. He reached into a hidden pocket, producing his wallet, and slowly revealed a business card, gold embossed, indicating that it belonged to the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Elena blinked, processing the transformation. The janitor before her, the man she had observed with quiet admiration, was Marcus Williams, the billionaire, the entrepreneur, the man whose success and wealth were the stuff of headlines. For a moment, silence hung between them, heavy and charged. Marcus leaned forward. "Ernest, I wanted you to see me before anything else, before wealth, before status, before assumptions. I wanted to see you, and I wanted you to see me." Elena's mind raced. Shock gave way to awe, then to understanding. She remembered every interaction, the quiet respect, the kindness, the subtle integrity. It all made sense. The man she had admired as a janitor was the same man who had built empires, yet had never allowed his status to overshadow his humanity. But the drama wasn't over. As Marcus and Elena processed the revelation, the affluent patrons from earlier approached, realizing something extraordinary had just occurred. Whispers spread quickly. "That's the billionaire? The janitor?" The smirked faces of entitlement faltered, replaced by surprise, and in some, embarrassment. Karen, the critical regular who had often judged Elena and Marcus, now froze. Her judgmental posture faltered as she realized her assumptions had been spectacularly wrong. She had dismissed the janitor, underestimated Elena's professionalism, and now faced undeniable evidence of her own biases. Tommy, the barista who had previously joked at Marcus's expense, looked away, shame flickering across his face. Luis, watching from the kitchen, nodded subtly at Marcus, silently affirming the success of the plan. The culmination was not just personal. It was a public unveiling that challenged perceptions and forced people to confront their biases. Elena, still processing, reached for Marcus's hand. You did all of this? To see what people are really like? She asked. Marcus nodded, a soft smile forming. Yes, but mostly, I wanted to see you. I wanted to know if someone could see me without labels, without assumptions. And you saw the real me. Her eyes softened. I don't even know what to say. Then don't, he replied gently. Just know that I trust you. And I wanted you to trust me too. The twist didn't stop at personal revelation. As the night unfolded, news began to spread through social media. Someone had caught the interaction on a discreet video. Within hours, the story went viral. Billionaire disguises himself as janitor. Waitress recognizes true character. Comments flooded in, praising Elena for her integrity and calling out the casual biases of those who had doubted her professionalism. The public exposure forced accountability. Karen issued a perfunctory apology, while Tommy faced consequences from management for past disrespectful behavior. Marcus's subtle experiment had achieved more than personal satisfaction. It had uncovered societal prejudices, celebrated genuine character, and ignited a conversation about respect and perception. Yet amid the external chaos, the private moment between Marcus and Elena remained sacred. He leaned closer, voice low and sincere. I know this isn't what you expected, but I hope you understand why I did it. Elena smiled, eyes glistening. I do, and I appreciate it more than you know. You didn't just reveal yourself. You showed me that appearances can't judge integrity and kindness. For Marcus, the night had been a test, a revelation, and a triumph. For Elena, it had been a validation, proof that even in a world quick to judge, people of true character could shine through. And for everyone else in that cafe, it was a lesson they would not forget. Prejudice is easy, but recognizing humanity takes courage. As the last customers left and the cafe settled into quiet, Marcus and Elena remained hands entwined, gazing at each other with a mixture of awe, relief, and newfound connection. The blind date, initially a social experiment, had transformed into something far greater, a genuine bond, forged in the crucible of honesty, integrity, and the courage to see beyond appearances. And in that moment, Marcus realized that wealth, influence, and status had never mattered. What mattered was being seen for who he truly was, and finding someone who could see him, just as he could see her. The twist had not only exposed societal biases, but had also revealed the transformative power of human connection. The cafe had finally emptied, leaving only Marcus and Elena in the warm, quiet glow of the overhead lights. The chaos of the evening, the whispers, the astonished patrons, the viral video, had passed. Still, its impact lingered like an echo, a reminder of everything that had shifted in just a few hours. Marcus leaned against the counter, still wearing his janitor uniform, though it now felt more symbolic than practical. He looked at Elena, her expression a mixture of amazement, pride, and something more profound, a sense of being truly seen. You handled tonight perfectly, he said softly. I couldn't have asked for a better partner. Not just in this little experiment, but in life. Elena smiled, a warmth spreading across her face. It wasn't an experiment for me, she replied, her voice steady. I just treated people the way I want to be treated. I didn't know who you were. And now that I do, I see that integrity isn't about status. It's about how you show up every single day, no matter what you're wearing. The public response to the video had been immediate. Social media buzzed with praise for Elena, highlighting her professionalism, empathy, and keen insight. Hashtags praising her fairness and calling out microaggressions began trending. The patrons who had dismissed her, Karen, Tommy, and a few others, were now facing scrutiny, their biases laid bare before a larger audience. Management at the cafe quietly addressed past incidents, ensuring accountability and reinforcing a culture of respect for all employees, regardless of appearance. Marcus's identity had also become part of the story. He received congratulations from colleagues, friends, and strangers alike, not for wealth or influence, but for courage, creativity, and the willingness to reveal the truth about human nature. The experiment had exposed the flaws in societal assumptions. Still, it had also highlighted the extraordinary power of empathy, observation, and respect. Amid all the attention, the most significant change was personal. Marcus and Elena, once separated by perception, social status, and circumstance, now shared a profound connection. They spent hours discussing not just the events of the night, but their hopes, fears, and dreams. Marcus revealed more about his life, the pressures, the isolation, and the subtle, persistent prejudice he faced despite his wealth. Elena shared her own struggles, ambitions, and the determination that had carried her this far. For both of them, the experience had been transformative. Marcus realized that proper recognition and understanding cannot be bought or assumed. It must be earned through action, observation, and vulnerability. Elena saw firsthand that beneath appearances, anyone, even the most seemingly ordinary individual, could possess extraordinary character. The cafe became more than just a workplace for Elena. It became a symbol of possibility. Patrons began treating employees with more respect, inspired by the viral story and the lessons it carried. Marcus, meanwhile, initiated programs to mentor young professionals from marginalized communities, offering guidance, resources, and opportunities that he wished he had received in his early days. As the night drew to a close, Marcus and Elena stepped outside into the crisp evening air. City lights shimmered in the distance, reflecting in the puddles left by recent rain. Marcus turned to her, eyes sincere. "Tonight was just the beginning," he said. "Not just for us, but for how people see each other. I want you by my side, not because of who I am, but because of who we are together." Elena, smiling softly, felt a swell of emotion. "I'd like that," she said. "I want honesty, integrity, and respect in my life. And I see all of that in you." The cafe, once a backdrop for judgment and dismissal, now stood as a testament to change, connection, and the courage to reveal truth. Patrons, employees, and onlookers would remember this night not just for the surprise of a billionaire in disguise, but for the power of seeing and valuing people for who they truly are. As Marcus and Elena walked into the night, their hands intertwined, it was clear that their journey, born of deception, forged in honesty, and strengthened by mutual respect, had only just begun. In a world quick to judge by appearances, they had discovered that character, empathy, and integrity always prevail. Sometimes the world teaches its harshest lessons in the quietest ways. Marcus Williams, a billionaire disguised as a janitor, and Elena Rivera, a waitress navigating life's daily challenges, reminded us all of a simple but profound truth. Character cannot be measured by wealth, appearance, or status. It is revealed in action, empathy, and integrity. Too often we judge too quickly. We see uniforms and assume roles. We notice skin color and let prejudice dictate expectations. We rely on societal labels instead of observing the human beneath. Marcus's experiment, though unconventional, exposed this tendency. It revealed the subtle ways bias operates, the assumptions we make, and the courage required to rise above them. Elena, by simply being herself, patient, observant, and kind, demonstrated that proper recognition is not about privilege. It is about seeing people for who they genuinely are, acknowledging their dignity, and responding with respect. Her actions challenged not only Marcus's assumptions, but the assumptions of everyone around her, showing that one person's integrity can inspire accountability and change. For Marcus, the experience reinforced another truth. Even the most powerful among us can be overlooked, misjudged, and underestimated. Actual influence lies not in wealth or titles, but in humility, empathy, and the ability to connect with people on a human level. By stepping out of the world of opulence and into anonymity, he discovered something far more valuable than recognition. Discovered genuine human connection. So what if this happened in your school, workplace, or community? How often do we overlook the janitor, the intern, the quiet colleague, or the person who doesn't fit our preconceived notions? How often do we miss the brilliance, integrity, or kindness hidden behind appearances? The takeaway is clear. Look deeper, judge less, and value people for who they truly are. Acts of empathy, respect, and honesty may seem minor. Still, they have a ripple effect, transforming lives, relationships, and even society itself. As Marcus and Elena walked away hand in hand, their story became more than a blind date. It became a lesson. A lesson that wealth cannot buy respect, disguise cannot hide truth, and prejudice can be challenged by courage, observation, and humanity. And above all, it reminds us that in a world full of assumptions, seeing people as they truly are is the most revolutionary act of all.